The massive ship moved through space like a metal mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that could destroy entire cities. Admiral Zexathera stood on the bridge, his scaled hands behind his back, as he watched the small yellow star grow larger on the main screen. The star had planets around it, and one of those planets held the species they had come to conquer. "Report," the Admiral said. His voice was deep and cold. "We are 3 days from the target system, Admiral," replied his aide. "Intelligence confirms the third planet contains the species called humans. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level is primitive." Zexathera nodded. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Galactic Empire. This would be number 48. The humans would surrender quickly, just like all the others. They always did when they saw the size of the Imperial fleet. Behind the flagship, 300 warships followed in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to level mountains. The fleet had never lost a battle. The Admiral did not expect that to change today. On the third planet, in a building called the White House, President Jake Morrison sat at his desk reading reports. The morning had started like any other, but then the message came. It arrived through every communication system on Earth at the same time. Radio, television, internet, even old emergency broadcast systems all carried the same signal. The image showed a creature that looked like a large lizard wearing military clothes. It spoke in perfect English, though its voice sounded wrong, like a computer trying to be human. "I am Admiral Zexathera of the Galactic Empire. Your species is now under Imperial control. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons. Prepare your leaders for transport to Imperial custody. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world." The message showed pictures of other planets. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled away. Entire continents burned. Then the transmission ended. President Morrison called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, the leaders of every major nation sat around a large table in a secure room beneath the White House. Some appeared by video screen, others had flown in on the fastest jets available. "How do we know this is real?" asked the Prime Minister of Britain. Dr. Lisa Carter, the government's chief scientist for alien research, stood up. She had been studying the message for hours. "The technology is real. The transmission came from outside our solar system but reached us instantly. That means faster than light communication. We can't do that yet." "What about their ships?" asked the president. "Our telescopes found them. 300 vessels, each one bigger than our largest aircraft carrier. They're moving toward Earth at incredible speed." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Earth had no space navy. The few ships they had were small research vessels and space stations. Against 300 warships, they had nothing. "We should surrender," said the Secretary of Defense. "Look at those pictures. Entire worlds destroyed. We can't fight that." "We can't surrender either," replied General Sam Brooks. "Look at the message again. They want our leaders taken away. They want complete control. This isn't occupation, it's slavery." President Morrison looked around the table. He saw fear in many faces, but also anger. Humans did not like being told what to do, especially by aliens who threatened to kill them all. "Dr. Carter, how long do we have?" "Their fleet will reach Earth in 72 hours, just like they said." "And our military capabilities?" "General," Brooks answered, "we have 47 ships that can operate in space. Most are small fighters or patrol craft. We have some weapons satellites, but nothing designed for war against an alien fleet." The president stood up. "Then we need to make a decision. Do we surrender and hope they treat us well, or do we fight?" "Mr. President," said the British Prime Minister through the video screen, "fighting is suicide. They have technology centuries ahead of ours." "Maybe," replied President Morrison, "but I've read history. Every time someone with better weapons thought they could easily conquer people with worse weapons, they got surprised. The British had better weapons than the Americans in 1776. The Germans had better weapons than the Russians in 1941. Sometimes, the side with worse weapons wins anyway." Dr. Carter spoke up again. "There's something else. I've been analyzing their message. The way they speak, the way they think. They expect us to surrender. Every other species they've conquered gave up when faced with overwhelming force. They're not prepared for a species that fights back. So what do you suggest? Asked the president. We send them our own message. An hour later, President Morrison sat in front of cameras that would broadcast his words to the entire galaxy. Behind him stood the flags of every nation on Earth. He looked directly into the camera and spoke in a calm, clear voice. I am President Jake Morrison, speaking for the people of Earth. We have received your ultimatum, Admiral Zexathera. Here is our response. Earth rejects your demand for surrender. Furthermore, we declare that the Galactic Empire is barred from entering our solar system. Any Imperial vessel that crosses into Terran space will be met with force. He paused, letting the words sink in. You show us pictures of destroyed worlds and expect us to be afraid. You are wrong. Humans do not kneel to tyrants. We do not surrender our freedom to anyone. If you want Earth, come and take it. But know this. We will fight you with everything we have, and we will never stop fighting. The message was transmitted, on all frequencies toward the Imperial fleet. On the flagship, Admiral Zexathera watched the human leader's words with growing disbelief. In 300 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever issued an ultimatum to the Empire. Most begged for mercy. Some tried to negotiate. None had ever declared the Empire barred from their space. The Admiral's aide looked confused. Sir, should we respond? Zexathera turned away from the screen. No response is necessary. In 72 hours, there will be no one left to respond to. But even as he said the words, something bothered him. The human leader had not looked afraid. He had looked determined. That was new. Admiral Zexathera stood on his bridge watching the edge of the human solar system grow closer. The Imperial fleet moved in perfect formation, 300 ships of death approaching their target. The Admiral had decided to make an example of these humans. Other worlds would see what happened to species who dared challenge the Empire. Admiral, we are now entering the outer system, reported his navigation officer. Good. Target the largest asteroids in this system. Destroy them completely. Send the footage to the human homeworld. The Imperial weapons fired. Massive beams of energy reached across space and struck rocks the size of mountains. The asteroids exploded in brilliant flashes of light, turned to dust in seconds. The demonstration was recorded and transmitted to Earth. On Earth, President Morrison watched the footage in the underground command center beneath NORAD. The room was filled with military officers, scientists, and world leaders connected by video screens. Everyone saw the same thing. Rocks that had existed for millions of years were gone in an instant. They're showing us what they can do to our cities, said General Sam Brooks grimly. Dr. Lisa Carter studied the weapon signatures on her computer. The energy output is incredible. Each shot has more power than our largest nuclear weapons. How many ships do we have ready? Asked President Morrison. 47 vessels, sir. Most are small fighters. We have 12 larger ships that used to be cargo haulers, now fitted with whatever weapons we could mount on them. The president looked at the numbers. 47 human ships against 300 alien warships. The math was not good, but math had never stopped humans before. Commander Beth Rogers sat in the pilot seat of her ship, the Defiant. Around her, the bridge crew checked their systems one final time. They all knew this was probably a one-way mission. The ship had been a civilian transport just a week ago. Now it carried missiles and plasma cannons bolted to its hull. All ships, this is Commander Rogers. We're about to face an enemy with better weapons, better armor, and more ships than us. But they don't know how humans fight. They expect us to run away when things get tough. Let's show them they're wrong. 47 voices answered over the radio. Copy that, Commander. Ready to fight. The human fleet moved toward Jupiter, where Imperial scouts had been detected. 3 alien cruisers were scanning the gas giant, probably looking for human bases or hidden weapons. Each cruiser was twice the size of the largest human ship. Lieutenant Commander Alex Kane piloted his fighter through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. His ship was tiny compared to the alien vessels, but it was fast and hard to detect. Behind him flew 11 other human fighters, all volunteers who had signed up knowing the odds. Contact, Kane reported. 3 Imperial cruisers. Just like intelligence said, they're moving in a standard patrol formation. Commander Rogers studied the tactical display. The alien ships moved in a perfect triangle, each one covering the others. It was textbook military formation, exactly what the Empire had used to conquer dozens of worlds. But humans had never read that textbook. All ships, listen carefully, we're not going to attack them head-on. We're going to do something they won't expect. Kane, take your fighters and hit them from below. Make them think that's our main attack. The rest of us will come from above and behind. Commander, that puts the fighters in extreme danger, warned her tactical officer. I know. Kane, are you willing? Kane's voice came back calm and steady. We didn't sign up for safe, Commander. We signed up to protect Earth. The battle began when Kane's fighters screamed up from below Jupiter's south pole. The Imperial cruisers immediately turned to face this new threat, their weapons charging. The aliens expected the small human ships to fire their missiles and retreat. That was how normal space combat worked. Instead, Kane's fighters split into 4 groups and attacked from different angles. When the aliens fired their main weapons, the human ships were no longer where they had been. They moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully planned. They're adapting faster than expected, reported the Imperial cruiser, captain to Admiral Zexathara. These humans don't fight like other species. Destroy them quickly and move on, the Admiral replied. But destroying the human fighters was not easy. Every time the Imperial weapons locked onto a target, the human ship would change direction or hide behind debris. Worse, the humans were working together in ways the Imperial computers could not predict. That was when Commander Rogers attacked from above. 12 human ships dove down toward the Imperial cruisers while the aliens were focused on the fighters. Below, the humans fired everything they had, missiles and energy weapons and even metal slugs fired from simple railguns. The Imperial shields held, but the attack confused their targeting systems. For a moment, the alien ships did not know which threat to face first. In that moment, Lieutenant Commander Kane made his choice. His fighter was damaged and losing power. Instead of retreating, he aimed his ship directly at the nearest Imperial cruiser and pushed his engines to maximum. The other pilots watched in shock as Kane's fighter slammed into the alien ship's weapon array. The explosion was not large, but it destroyed the cruiser's main gun. More importantly, it showed the other humans something crucial. The Imperial ships could be hurt, they could be damaged, they could be beaten. The battle continued for 20 minutes. When it was over, 8 human ships were destroyed, and many others were damaged, but 1 Imperial cruiser was completely destroyed, and the other 2 were hurt badly enough that they had to retreat. On Earth, President Morrison received the battle report with mixed feelings. They had lost good people, brave pilots who died, fighting for their planet. But they had also proven something important. The Empire could be defeated. Dr. Carter studied the wreckage and battle recordings. I'm seeing something interesting, she told the president. The Imperial ships are very advanced, but they're also very predictable. Their tactics, their formations, even their weapons follow set patterns. Humans don't fight that way. We adapt. We improvise, we do things that don't make sense to them. General Brooks nodded. Kane's sacrifice showed us their weakness. They expect enemies to act logically. When we do something illogical, like ramming their ships, their systems can't handle. News of the battle spread throughout the Empire. On distant worlds, conquered species heard that humans had actually destroyed an Imperial warship. Some began to wonder if the Empire was really as invincible as it claimed. Admiral Zexathara read the battle reports with growing anger. These humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to surrender after seeing Imperial power. Instead, they had fought back and actually won a small victory. Increase fleet speed, he ordered. I want to reach their homeworld as soon as possible. No more small battles. We will crush them completely. But even as he gave the order, the Admiral felt something he had never experienced before in 300 years of conquest. Doubt. Admiral Zexathara stood before the holographic display showing the inner solar system. The red planet Mars hung in the center, surrounded by Imperial fleet positions. This time, he would not underestimate the humans. 3 full battle groups surrounded the planet, over 100 ships ready to crush any resistance. "Begin the assault," the admiral commanded. On Mars, Colonel Dan Murphy watched the alien ships descend through the thin atmosphere. He stood in the command bunker deep beneath the main colony, surrounded by monitors showing defensive positions across the planet. Mars had been humanity's first real colony beyond Earth, home to 2 million people who had spent decades making the red planet livable. "All units, this is command. The attack has begun. Remember, we're not just fighting for Mars. We're fighting for every human world that will come after us." Murphy had been born on Mars 35 years ago. He had watched the planet change from a cold, dead rock to a world where children could play outside under protective domes. He would not let the Empire take that away. The Imperial landing ships touched down in 6 locations around the planet. Thousands of Kethamori shock troops poured out, their advanced armor gleaming in the Martian sunlight. They expected to face scared colonists with basic weapons. Instead, they found empty landing zones. "Where are the humans?" asked Commander Vothkai as his troops spread out from the landing site. The scanner showed human settlements nearby, but no defenders could be seen. That was when the ground exploded. Dr. Kate Walsh had spent 3 weeks preparing Mars for this battle. As the planet's chief engineer, she knew every tunnel, every pipe, every system that kept the colonies alive. She had turned all of it into weapons. The atmospheric processors that created breathable air became poison gas generators. The water pumps became high-pressure weapons that could cut through Imperial armor. The heating systems became flamethrowers that could melt alien equipment. But the real surprise was the dust. Mars was famous for its dust storms, massive weather events that could cover the entire planet. Dr. Walsh had learned to create smaller storms on command, filling the air with particles that interfered with Imperial sensors and communication systems. As the alien troops advanced toward the main colony, they found themselves walking blind through a red cloud that made their advanced equipment useless. They could not see more than a few feet in any direction, their radios filled with static. Their targeting systems could not lock onto anything. That was when the humans attacked. Major Sue Parker led a team of 20 volunteers through the underground tunnels that connected all the Martian settlements. They had been built to protect colonists from radiation and storms. Now they let human defenders move around the planet without being seen. Parker's team emerged from hidden entrances behind the Imperial forces. They carried weapons made from mining equipment and construction tools. Plasma cutters designed to slice through rock worked just as well on alien armor. Industrial explosives meant for clearing tunnels could destroy Imperial vehicles. "Remember, hit them fast and disappear," Parker told her team. "We can't win a straight fight, but we can make them afraid to go anywhere alone." The battle for Mars became unlike anything the Empire had ever experienced. Human defenders appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the aliens could respond. Children as young as 12 helped by running messages through the tunnel system. Elderly colonists who were too old to fight used their knowledge of Mars to set traps for the invaders. The most shocking thing for the Imperial forces was that the human civilians refused to evacuate. On every other world the Empire had conquered, non-combatants fled as soon as the fighting started. On Mars, families stayed to fight alongside the soldiers. Sarah Johnson was a teacher who had lived on Mars for 15 years. When Imperial troops entered her school, they expected to find scared children. Instead, they found Sarah and her students had turned the building into a fortress. The children knew every hiding place, every secret passage. They helped the adults set up ambushes and escape routes. "Why don't you surrender?" Commander Vothkai asked when his troops finally captured Sarah. "You cannot win against the Empire." Sarah looked at the alien commander with contempt. "Because this is our home. We built this world with our own hands. We're not going to let you take it." The Imperial commander did not understand. On every other world, conquered people eventually accepted their fate. These humans seemed to get more determined the longer the fighting continued. Professor Jim Adams worked frantically in his laboratory beneath the Mars University. The battle raged above, but he had a different mission. Pieces of destroyed Imperial Equipment had been brought to him, and he was learning how the enemy technology worked. "It's incredible," he told his assistant as they examined an alien weapon. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, but it's also predictable. Everything follows the same patterns, uses the same energy signatures. Once we understand the pattern, we can counter it." Adams had discovered something important. The Empire's weapons were powerful but inflexible. They were designed to work perfectly against known threats. Humans represented an unknown threat, and the Imperial systems could not adapt quickly enough. "Send this information to Earth immediately," Adams ordered. "They need to know that we can beat this technology if we're clever about it." The battle for Mars lasted 5 days. Imperial forces controlled the landing zones and several large settlements, but they could not secure the planet. Every time they thought an area was clear, human defenders would appear again. Supply convoys were attacked. Communication posts were sabotaged. Imperial soldiers began to fear going anywhere without heavy escort. On the 5th day, Admiral Zexathera made a decision that shocked his own officers. He ordered the Imperial forces to withdraw from Mars. "Sir, we have superior numbers and firepower," protested his aide. "We can still win." "At what cost?" the Admiral replied. "We have lost 3,000 troops and dozens of vehicles. The humans show no sign of surrendering. How many more soldiers will we lose trying to hold one small planet?" For the first time in Imperial history, a primitive species had not only resisted but had forced the Empire to retreat. The news spread throughout the galaxy faster than Imperial censors could stop it. On conquered worlds, species that had been enslaved for generations began to whisper, if humans could defeat the Empire, maybe they could fight back too. Maybe freedom was possible. Colonel Murphy stood in the ruins of the main colony as the last Imperial ships lifted off. Mars was damaged but still free. More importantly, humanity had proven something crucial. The Empire could be beaten. They had better weapons and more ships, but humans had something the Empire did not understand. They had the will to fight for their homes, no matter what the cost. Dr. Carter received the battle reports on Earth with growing excitement. The tactical data from Mars confirmed her theories about Imperial weaknesses. But more than that, the victory had given humanity something they desperately needed: hope. "The Empire expects people to surrender when faced with overwhelming force," she told President Morrison. "But humans don't think that way. We see overwhelming odds as a challenge, not a reason to quit. That's our greatest weapon." Admiral Zexathera reviewed the reports from Mars with growing unease. His perfect record of conquest was broken. For the first time, he faced an enemy that seemed to get stronger the more pressure was applied to them. "Prepare the entire fleet for assault on the human homeworld," he ordered. "No more small battles. We will crush them completely or not at all." But deep inside, the Admiral wondered if even the full Imperial fleet would be enough to break a species that refused to accept defeat. The news from Mars reached the Imperial capital world 3 days after the retreat. Emperor Vashatar sat on his crystal throne in the Great Palace, reading reports that should have been impossible. For 800 years, the Empire had never failed to conquer a primitive world. Now these humans had forced an Imperial fleet to withdraw. "Summon Admiral Zexathera," the Emperor commanded. His voice echoed through the vast throne room like distant thunder. When the communication link opened, the Emperor's eyes glowed with anger. "Explain to me how a species with primitive technology defeated 3 battle groups." Admiral Zexathera stood stiffly before the holographic image of his ruler. "My Emperor, these humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They do not follow standard military doctrine. They use tactics that seem to defy logic." "I do not care about their tactics," the Emperor replied coldly. "I care about results. You will take the entire Imperial fleet to their homeworld. You will destroy them completely. No survivors, no prisoners. Make them an example for the galaxy." "Yes, my Emperor. It will be done." The communication ended, but Emperor Vashatar continued to stare at the reports. Something bothered him about these humans. Something he could not name. In 8 centuries of rule, no species had ever inspired others to resist. But already his intelligence agents reported growing unrest on conquered worlds. Species that had been quiet for generations were beginning to ask dangerous questions. On Earth, President Morrison stood before the largest gathering in human history. Every television, radio, and internet connection on the planet carried his words. But more importantly, human engineers had figured out how to broadcast beyond Earth, sending the message to every corner of the galaxy. People of Earth and all beings who can hear this message, the president began. We stand at a moment that will define not just humanity, but the future of freedom itself. The Galactic Empire has ruled through fear for 800 years. They have conquered thousands of worlds by making people believe resistance is hopeless. The president paused, looking directly into the cameras. We have proven them wrong. On Mars, human colonists drove back the Imperial fleet. We showed the galaxy that the Empire can be defeated. But this is only the beginning. Tomorrow they will come for Earth with everything they have. They will try to destroy us to prevent other worlds from following our example. Around the galaxy, on distant planets enslaved by the Empire, beings gathered in secret to listen to the human leader's words. We may not survive what comes next, Morrison continued. But win or lose, we have already achieved something important. We have shown the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for. We have proven that even the smallest species can stand up to the mightiest empire if they refuse to surrender. Captain, Rick Taylor sat in his ship's command chair, watching the display that showed the approaching Imperial fleet. 200 Imperial warships moved toward Earth in perfect formation. It was the largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled for a single battle. Around Earth, 43 human ships waited. 4 ships had been lost at Mars, but Earth's shipyards had been working around the clock. They had managed to build 6 new vessels, though they were small and lightly armed compared to the Imperial dreadnoughts. All ships, this is Captain Taylor. In a few hours, we're going to face the entire Imperial fleet. I won't lie to you about the odds. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology we can barely understand. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew, young men and women who had volunteered to die for their planet. But I want you to remember something. Every human ship out there is crewed by people who chose to be here. Nobody was forced to fight. We're here because we believe Earth should remain free. We're here because someone has to stand up to bullies even when the bully is bigger than you are. Dr. Lisa Carter worked frantically in her laboratory, surrounded by pieces of captured Imperial technology. Professor Adams had sent data from Mars before the battle ended, and she was trying to turn that information into weapons. The key is their command and control systems, she explained to her team of engineers. Imperial ships are controlled by a central computer network. If we can disrupt that network, their coordination breaks down. How do we disrupt something that advanced? Asked her assistant. By being human, Carter replied with a tired smile. Imperial technology is designed to handle known threats. We're going to give them something completely unknown. She pointed to a device that looked like it had been built from spare parts and old computers. This is a virus, but not like any computer virus they've seen before. It's designed to think like a human, to be creative and unpredictable. Their systems won't know how to stop it. Commander Beth Rogers led a small fleet of human ships on a dangerous mission. While the main Imperial fleet approached Earth, she was taking 12 vessels toward the largest Imperial ship, a massive dreadnought that served as Admiral Zexathera's flagship. Remember the plan, she told her pilots. We're not trying to destroy their flagship. We're trying to get close enough to plant Dr. Carter's virus in their computer systems. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. The Imperial flagship was protected by dozens of escort ships and defensive systems that could destroy planets. But if they could disrupt the Imperial command network, Earth's defenders might have a chance. Lieutenant Ryan Clark piloted his fighter through the asteroid belt, using the rocks as cover while the Imperial fleet passed overhead. His mission was different from the others. He carried a message recorded by President Morrison that would be broadcast to every world in the galaxy. The message was simple but powerful. It told the story of humanity's fight against the Empire. It showed pictures of Mars, where ordinary people had driven back Imperial forces. It ended with an invitation for other species to join the fight for freedom. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, the president said in the recording. We may not survive this battle, but our example will live on. Every world that fights for freedom, every species that refuses to kneel, carries on what we started here. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zexathara prepared for the final battle. Around him, his officers checked weapon systems and battle plans. The fleet was ready to destroy Earth completely. But the Admiral could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. These humans had surprised him too many times. Even now, facing complete annihilation, they showed no signs of surrender. Their final message to the galaxy had not begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. Instead, they had challenged other species to follow their example. "Admiral, we are receiving multiple signals from across the galaxy," reported his communications officer. "Several worlds are broadcasting messages of support for the humans." "Impossible. Our subject worlds would not dare." "Sir, the signals are coming from dozens of systems. Some are calling for resistance against Imperial rule." Admiral Zexathara felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, not fear of the small human fleet, but fear of what their example might inspire. The Empire had ruled for 8 centuries because conquered species believed resistance was hopeless. If that belief cracked, if people began to think they could fight back, the Empire would face rebellions on thousands of worlds. "Destroy the human fleet quickly," he ordered. "Then glass their planet, leave nothing alive. The galaxy must see what happens to those who defy the Empire." But even as he gave the order, the Admiral wondered if it was already too late. The humans had planted something more dangerous than any weapon in the galaxy's mind. They had planted hope. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of freedom throughout the galaxy. The Battle of Earth began at dawn on the 3rd day. 200 Imperial warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They moved toward the blue planet in perfect formation, weapons charged and ready to destroy humanity forever. 43 human ships rose to meet them. President Morrison stood in the command center deep beneath NORAD, watching the tactical display. Each dot of light represented a ship with brave men and women aboard, people who had volunteered to die for their world. The math was simple and terrible. 200 against 43. "Mr. President," said General Brooks, "all ships report. Ready for battle." Morrison nodded. He had made the hardest decision of his life. Instead of staying safely on the ground, he was going up to fight alongside his people. The presidential ship Liberty waited on the launch pad above, fitted with the best weapons Earth could build. "General, if we lose today, make sure the galaxy remembers what happened here. Make sure they know humans fought to the end." "Sir, we're not going to lose." Morrison looked at his old friend. "How can you be so sure?" Brooks smiled. "Because we're human. We don't know how to quit." In space, Commander Beth Rogers led her small fleet toward the Imperial flagship. Her mission was dangerous beyond measure. She had to get close enough to the massive dreadnought to plant Dr. Carter's virus in their computer systems. Around her, 11 other human ships followed, knowing they were flying to their deaths. "All ships, this is Rogers. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to cause chaos. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and make them confused." The Imperial fleet opened fire first. Beams of energy that could destroy cities reached across space toward the human ships. But the humans were ready. They scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed random but were carefully planned. Captain Rick Taylor dodged between Imperial fire, his ship dancing through space like a leaf in a hurricane. Behind him, 3 human fighters followed, his lead attacking an Imperial cruiser from different angles. Their weapons were tiny compared to the alien ship, but they struck at weak points Professor Adams had identified. The Imperial ship's shields flickered and failed. Taylor's fighters poured everything they had into the gap, and the cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. "First blood to us," Taylor reported, "but they're learning fast." He was right. The Imperial fleet began to adapt, changing their formations to counter human tactics. Admiral Zexathara had studied the battles at Jupiter and Mars. He would not be caught off guard again. "Focus fire on individual human ships," the Admiral ordered. "Destroy them one by one. Do not let them group together." The tide of battle began to turn. Human ships were faster and more agile, but Imperial firepower was overwhelming. One by one, Earth's defenders were being destroyed. The Liberty launched from Earth's surface with President Morrison aboard, racing toward the battle. That was when Commander Rogers reached the Imperial flagship. Her small fleet had fought through layers of escort ships, losing 7 vessels in the process. Only Rogers and 3 other ships remained when they reached the massive dreadnought. The ship was so large it looked like a metal moon, covered in weapons that could level continents. "This is it," Rogers told her remaining pilots. "We get one chance. Make it count." The 4 human ships attacked the flagship from different directions. Imperial defenses focused on the larger ships, allowing Rogers to slip through in her small fighter. She flew directly toward the dreadnought's command section, dodging defensive fire that lit up space around her. At the last second, Rogers ejected the virus device Dr. Carter had built. It struck the Imperial ship's hull and immediately began, boring through the armor with industrial cutting tools. Once inside, it would seek out the ship's computer systems. Rogers never saw if her mission succeeded. Imperial weapons destroyed her fighter seconds later. But her sacrifice was not in vain. Throughout the Imperial fleet, computer systems began to malfunction. Ships lost communication with each other. Weapons misfired. Navigation systems failed. Dr. Carter's virus spread like wildfire through the Imperial network, creating chaos in their perfect formation. "What is happening?" Admiral Zexathara demanded as his bridge displays flickered and failed. "Unknown malfunction in all systems," his aide reported. "We're losing coordination across the entire fleet." That was when President Morrison arrived with the Liberty and the last reserves of Earth's defense force. 20 ships launched from hidden bases around the solar system, joining the battle just as Imperial coordination collapsed. "All ships, this is President Morrison. Now is our chance. While their systems are down, hit them with everything we have." The final phase of the battle was brutal and chaotic. Imperial ships tried to fight individually while human vessels attacked in coordinated groups. Without their computer network, the aliens could not coordinate their superior firepower. Captain Taylor led a desperate attack on Admiral Zexathara's flagship. The virus had damaged the ship's weapons, but it was still heavily defended. Taylor's ship was badly damaged, engines failing and hull breached in 3 places. Taylor to all ships: "I'm going in for a ramming attack. Tell Earth we tried." "Negative, Captain," came President Morrison's voice. "I'm right behind you. We'll do this together." The Liberty and Taylor's ship flew side by side toward the Imperial flagship. Around them, the last human fighters provided cover, drawing fire away from the 2 leaders. At the last moment, both ships fired everything they had directly into the flagship's bridge. The explosion lit up space like a new star. Admiral Zexathara's ship broke apart, taking the Imperial command structure with it. Without their leader, the remaining Imperial ships began to retreat. "All Imperial vessels, this is Acting Commander Vextal. We are withdrawing from this system immediately." President Morrison's voice was broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention, Imperial fleet. You came here to destroy humanity. You have failed. Earth remains free. Any Imperial ship that returns to our space will be met with force." The Imperial withdrawal sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. On 1,000 conquered worlds, species that had been enslaved for centuries heard the news. Humans had not just survived the Empire's full attack, they had won. Rebellions began on dozens of worlds within days. The Kethmori lost 3 star systems in the first week after Earth's victory. Species that had forgotten the word freedom began to remember what it meant. On Earth, President Morrison stood before the cameras once again. This time his message was different. "People of Earth, and all free beings throughout the galaxy, we have won our freedom. But our fight is not over. The Empire still enslaves billions of innocent people on thousands of worlds. We cannot rest while others suffer under tyranny." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Today, Earth announces the formation of the Terran Defense Alliance. Any species that wants to fight for freedom is welcome to join us. Any world that declares independence from the Empire will have our support. The message reached every corner of the galaxy. Within months, over 50 species had joined the alliance. The age of Imperial expansion was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun. Emperor Vashitar sat on his crystal throne, reading reports of rebellions throughout his empire. For the first time in 800 years, the empire was losing territory instead of gaining it, all because of one small blue planet and the stubborn species that lived there. Perhaps, he thought, we should have paid more attention to what these humans were capable of before we tried to conquer them. But it was too late for regrets. The galaxy had learned that freedom was possible. And once that lesson was learned, no empire could stand against it forever. Humanity had not just saved themselves, they had saved everyone.